I just want people to understand that like messing up is just like that's just normal. You have to mess up. Like you're human. We all make mistakes and we can treat it like it's this massive big deal where we're just letting ourselves down or we're letting someone else down, our partners down. Or we can just realize, okay, this is normal. This is what happens and take responsibility, understand it's not the end of the world.
Hello, welcome to Quest for Peace. I am Saju, your host, and today's special guest is a returning guest, Matt Marquez. He is the founder of Grow More Joy Relationship Coaching. He helps people build the marriage of their dreams and feel happier, more confident, and more at ease. He's also my son in law. Please help me welcome Matt back to my show for the second time. Thank you, Matt, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Last time we were together, we were here with you and your wife, Sonana, who happens to be my daughter, and Matt, you're my son in law, just letting everyone know. And of course, I'm partial to you guys. But I'm also very, very proud of you for all the work that the both of you have done. Last time we were here talking about gentle parenting, and that is something that you and Sonana do together. And now we're going to be talking about the work that you do in the world. And your program is called Grow More Joy, correct?
Yeah. Grow More Joy relationship coaching. And I mean, this is something that has just been a huge part of my life and my relationship with Sanina, your daughter. And I'm just so grateful for everything I've learned. And like I just don't believe I would have the life I have, the so many things that I'm so grateful for in my relationship in my life. I feel like it's because I've learned how to show up in my relationship differently and more fully and more vulnerably and more honestly and so it's become such a big thing for me that I'm like I want to show other people deserve, everyone deserves how to learn how to do this. And so that's really why I started to get into coaching.
It's amazing because getting peace in the world is getting along. That is a
Yeah.
big part of having peace in your life. And I know how much you work with this, and I know all your clients are extremely happy with your work, from what I understand. How did you get started? Why do you do this work?
I think for I probably grew up the way I think a lot of people grew up, thinking, just not knowing basically what it means to be in a relationship. There's actually a story I want to share that I think kind of encapsulates the way I really thought about what it meant to be in a relationship in a way I think a lot of people do. And so a while back, I remember Selena would like fall asleep on my shoulder, on my arm, and it would get really uncomfortable. And I would want to move my arm, but I didn't want to disturb her. And so I remember asking for advice, like someone I really trust, like, what do I do? I don't want to just knock her off or wake her up, but I also maybe I want to move around or even go somewhere. And he was like, you can't say anything. You just have to suck it up. Like that's your job. Is to just, make it easy for her. And I think that's a pretty common story that, like you're saying, like we want to get along, right? We want to get along, and that means not upsetting our partners, keeping them happy and not making them angry or irritated or frustrated. And so that's kind of way I approached it for a long time, but it didn't feel very good. It didn't feel like I could really be myself. And I think that's what a lot of people feel like. It's like, oh, okay, there's the things that I want to do, and then there's the things I'm allowed to do in my relationship that my partner's okay with. And so over time, it became clear to me that if I really wanted to feel the way I wanted to feel in my relationship, in my life, I had to be more open about what I wanted and the things that I did want to do or I didn't want to do, and to really start sharing that and be willing to upset and frustrate, my partner sometimes. And but the flip side of that is that once we're able to talk about it, once we're able to share all these things, we understand each other so much more deeply. And so I don't actually remember what happened with the the arm thing. I don't remember the result of that, but I've really learned after that to just speak up. The things that are a little bit frustrating, I want to share that. And the things that I really want to celebrate that I'm enjoying, I definitely want to share that too. And so it's really that openness and richness in how we talk to each other and how we celebrate our relationship together, our time together, really, really made it just a profound impact on our how we feel about each other and just like how I go about my day and how I feel about life. And so that was just something I knew I wanted to share with other people because then I would go to the person who gave me that advice and I went to other people and I said, "Hey, what about this way of like being open, being vulnerable and being honest?" And it was like, "What? You can't do
Mm.
that." And so it just became a thing where I realized more people don't know about this, more people need to know about this. And so that's really became kind of the impetus of me getting into coaching.
That's awesome. When you talk about speaking up, most people don't understand how to speak up either. I mean, you can't speak up and say, hey, you're on my shoulder and it hurts, and you don't seem to realize or get really nasty about it. But there are ways of speaking in such a way that your partner will understand. And I know that's what you teach. I know y'all had also learned things from the teachings of, I'm forgetting his name, but the nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg, sorry,
Yes, yes,
right?
Marshall Rosenberg. Yeah, I mean, everything I teach, I would say NVC is the foundation. It's the foundation of what I teach, what I've been learning. I don't fully agree with like all the framing and the way it's taught, and so I kind of have moved a little bit away from that, but it's still underneath everything that I really believe in. And for people who aren't familiar, I mean, nonviolent communication is just really broadly this idea that every human being, your partner, everyone else, we share these things called feelings and needs, and we all have them in common. Like the feelings of like joy, excitement, despair, and sadness, and also needs like like the need for rest, for connection, for meaning and purpose. And so when we're really able to understand what those are and what we are needing in any particular moment, then we basically just know what we need from our partners and what we want from our partners, and we can talk specifically, exactly, and like that's how you can be honest and vulnerable when you speak in that way. When you speak in the language of feelings and needs and say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm needing." When you talk in that way, you're not judging your partner. You're not blaming them and saying, "Oh, you messed up." You're like, "No, this is just what's going on for me. This is what I would like. Would you be able to help me with this?" And so that's a big part of, yeah, what I help people learn, that you don't have to judge someone. You don't have to blame someone. You don't have to attack your partner to make them understand you, which is something that most people I think don't know. I did not realize that you could do that.
Yeah, I can understand that. Give me an example. How would you, for instance, let's take the example of Sunaina sleeping on your shoulder. How would you, right now, today's, I don't know what
Yeah.
other things go on between the two of you, and I don't want to know, but how would you talk about that with her or with, let's say somebody, does something. It's just an example.
Yeah, no, I can use that example. I mean, the first step is really to understand myself in that situation, is to decide what's going on inside of me. Am I like in so much pain and discomfort that I have to move? Or is it like, actually, it's a little uncomfortable, but I can bear it. Like really what's going on? What do I feel like I really need in that moment? Is it to be have that ease and physical freedom, or is it like I just really want to prioritize Selena's rest and be able to support her in that way? And so I can choose in that moment what feels right for me. And then depending on that, and let's just say, okay, I really need to move my arm. It really hurts. At that point, I would wake her up. I would just kind of nudge her a little bit and say, hey, I really was trying to let you rest, but it's just a little uncomfortable here for me, and I just really need to move my arm. If you want to keep sleeping, go ahead, or I can move over, whatever you'd like. That way, it's not really just me telling her you have to do this one thing. It's like, hey, this is what I want to do, but I want you to be a part of it too, to help make decision. And I realize for moving around or where she's falling asleep, it's like maybe there aren't too many options. But if we're talking about something else like, hey, I'm not, your partner is not helping you around the house and they're not throwing the trash, or they're working late hours, or they're staying out late seeing friends, those are all things that you can first tap into yourself. What am I needing in this situation? What do I want to ask from my partner? And then you can talk about it in that way. Because that's, as you can tell, like that's really different from saying, "Hey, I'm feeling really lonely and I just would love to have some one-on-one time with you because you've been hanging out with friends lately." Like that's very different from, "You never come home, you're always out late, I never know where you are, what's going on? Do you even care about me anymore?" Like, that's very, very different conversation. That second one, it's like that's what we're used to hearing. Like that's what we think, like that's what you have to tell your partner. That's what you have to say to get them to listen to you and understand. But what happens when you talk like that is that they're like, "Oh, wait, this again. Oh boy, like I got heaven forbid I, enjoy myself. Like at least one of us should try enjoying ourselves one time." And then it's just like this whole big thing. And like you're never going to be able to really connect with each other, to really trust each other and feel safe with each other if that's how you're talking to each other, versus this is what's going on. Can we talk about it? Can you share with me what's going on with you, how you're feeling, what are you needing? So then we can work together to make sure that we're both doing, feeling good about this situation.
Wow, if everybody would work that way, would be so amazing. This world would be great if there were no fights. Um,
Well, that's
n-
actually
it-
that's an interesting thing you say about no fights. Like there are fights. The fighting, I think, is just a normal, healthy. Having a disagreement with someone is completely normal, completely healthy. Like it has to happen because it's the whole idea of like, are you going to wake someone up or are you just going to like suck it in? Like speaking up for yourself, I think has to happen if you want to feel more connected with your partner, if you want to feel more love and support in your relationship, you have to speak up. You have to be able to talk about things that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but ultimately lead to that understanding and openness that gives you that connection, that gives you that love, that gives you that sense of support and intimacy.
well, it's true. When you get married, you are each other's mirrors. You are here to learn from each other, and you're there to understand each other. And I guess with this kind of process, you are learning about yourself as well as your partner, and being open to understand each other is the key. Like you don't want things to be your way, but you want it to be for both. And that's really beautiful. Also, what I'm hearing you say is we mustn't take things personally when something happens.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I think it's one thing to say, "Oh, don't take what I say personally." Like it's really hard to not take something like that personally. But if and this is what one of the things I really work when I work with couples and individuals is to really understand that when people are saying things that feels personal, it rarely has something to do with them. It's really
Exactly.
about someone communicating in their way, in their best way that they know how, that maybe they're hurting, maybe they're suffering in some way, and them saying something that might be hurtful, like going back to the, example of someone's partner is going out all the time, and maybe they're saying something like, "Well, you never want to spend time with me, you never want to have fun anymore." Like that could feel personal. That could feel personal to hear that, like, "Oh my gosh, they're saying I'm boring. They're saying there's something wrong with me." And what I really try to help people understand is that for that to not be the start of another fight and to not feel personal, is to then start to understand, gosh, what's going on in my partner that would make them say that? Is it because like they wouldn't say that unless they also wanted to spend time with you. They wanted to have more connection. They wanted to have more fun with you. And so that's in a way, it's like kind of like a cry for help. It's like saying, "Hey, I want this, but you're not giving it to me, or I don't feel like you're giving it to me. And so I'm going to say this thing that feels hurtful." And so it's just all these misunderstandings and incomplete messages that we're sending that just kind of pile up. And each time you hear it, it just get more frustrated, more angry with each other. And then if that goes on for a long time, I mean, that's how that like if you're when you're dating someone and you're maybe when you first get married with someone, you feel so in sync. You feel so in love and like there's this deep understanding. And that's how it gets buried with these little misunderstandings. And because when I work with people, they almost always just deeply, deeply love each other. That is never a question. But what I've realized, what I've learned is that love alone isn't really enough. You really have to be able to be open about what you're going through and then also be open to understanding what your partner's going through. And when you're able to do that, that's when you can start to push away all those misunderstandings, all that frustration, all the disappointment and anger that can build up over years. I mean, I've worked with clients and people who have been together for decades, and they're like, "Gosh, I don't know if there's any hope for us." But there's almost always hope. And it often doesn't even take that much time because once they're able to reconnect with people are able to reconnect with themselves, reconnect with their partner, that then they rediscover that connection and that closeness that they thought was just gone, but it's just buried. And a lot of times it's not even buried that deeply. It just takes a little bit of work to kind of figure out how do we get back to there. And it's super gratifying to help people, but it's something that yeah, I wish everyone knew.
For sure. When a couple who have who really don't know how to talk to each other start, like you said, you never do this for me, or we never go out and all, and that's kind of again taking things personally because you don't know why the other person is thinking that way. I recently went through that, and I was speaking to my coach, and I said, well, this person said this, and I got angry, and I said, well, why are you being so mean? And on says, well, did you consider what's going on in this person's life that he is speaking that way? And and that's when I realized, yeah, Matt's taught me these things. Why am I not understand? Why have I not learned it yet?
It
So
yeah, it's
it
hard. It's hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have to keep reminding, but isn't it beautiful when we start understanding, the couple starts understanding, hey, I was not even understanding my partner, and my partner is in pain and they're going through something, and understand that both need help, is what you are teaching. I think it's a beautiful journey. Then you can restart everything, and restart everything with love and
Yeah,
understanding
and
for each other. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and, like, I love the premise of your podcast about how do you find peace, and I think there's this misconception that peace is not fighting, it's not disagreeing or arguing, and I really don't think that's the case at all. I think that's just inevitable, healthy part of, sharing needs, sharing, like, "This is something I need, I wanna voice my disagreement." And so I think to actually get peace in a relationship and probably in the world, it's just a willingness to be open and to be honest and to make an effort to understand yourself and to understand someone else. And if both people are willing to do that, then everything's possible. You can do anything in a relationship. There will always be that like the path of least resistance then becomes connection and love and understanding. If that's where you're expecting, you're wanting to go back to always.
It would be wonderful if people who are ready to get married would take a course in communication before they got married, so they would understand what to expect and how to maneuver through life. Do you have people who come to you who are about to get married? Have you had any people like that?
Yeah, I have worked with people who are engaged. I have worked with people kind of across the spectrum. And it can be easier, I think, to work with people who are earlier in their relationship, but it's also I really don't think it's necessary because I would actually say I tend to work with people who are actually have been together longer.
Mhm.
And and I think some people are like wondering, oh, maybe it's too late for us. We've been disappointed and a little kind of unhappy. And even though we deeply love each other, we know we love each other, but we're still a little unhappy for a while. But as long as you still have that, like, love and that sense of connection and that shared history, there's also a lot of incentive to rediscover that connection and reconnect and have that stronger bond again. So, I don't really it's never too late to get back to that feeling you have, I think, when you're dating and when you're first married, that newlywed feeling of connection and understanding, and then you have kids and then your job gets busier, you get promoted, and so there's more pressure at work, and your family has their demands and all that stuff, and so it can be really easy to wake up one day and realize all that time and attention and care and love that I was really just devoting to my partner, I'm spreading it across lots and lots of different places. And we feel that when our partners aren't paying attention to us the way they used to. And I don't recommend anyone do this, but, like, if you go online and you're like, "Oh my gosh, my partner hasn't taken me out to dinner, in like a year or something." And if you go online and you say, "What do I do? What's going on here?" Like 98% of the advice you get is like, "Leave him."
Leave him.
Leave him. He's
Yes.
a deadbeat. He doesn't love you, doesn't care for you. Or the other side of it is that's just the way it is. That's what marriage is like. It's like you just, as long as he remembers your anniversary, you have to be okay with it. And I don't obviously agree with either of those things, but that's the I think the common advice and belief that so many people have. And so I really consider my mission to help people realize, no, there's another way. You don't have to settle for that.
So, do I think it's really, really tiring. I mean, you're busy in your life. You have all this challenges, your work and family, children, and then to try and get along. You have to think about it and see what the needs are, and it's very, very tiring. Do you have people say that to you? That how can I do everything and this? You think it's easy. Just come home and eat your dinner, and yeah, you're done. What
Yeah,
do you
it's
what do you say to people like that?
I actually, yeah, had a conversation not too long ago, with someone I'm working with who was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so complicated. This is, so hard." And what I told them, and actually I guess I say this relatively frequently lately, is that I think relationships are actually quite simple. They're not easy, but they're simple. Like, being honest. If you be honest and then do your best, make your best effort to understand yourself and support yourself and your partner, like, that's it. But our minds will look at all the things that we think we have to do and feel like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. That's impossible. That's so much effort to always be thinking about my feelings, to like always be checking with myself, to always be making myself be interested in my partner when I'm just really tired. I get home at the end of the day. I don't want to have some long conversation where we're digging into each other's childhoods and stuff. Like, that's a supernatural thing to do. And so the idea, though, and what I hope people learn how to do is recognize that you're always doing your best. And some days your best means I'm going to make all this time, I'm going to schedule this incredible dinner. I'm going to, like, maybe I'm going to make dinner for my partner and we're going to really talk and connect in a way we haven't in a long time. And sometimes you're like, I'm just going to order pizza and I want to talk, but I don't really feel up for it. So I'm just going to let them know, hey, I thought we could do it, but I'm just not up for it. Can we try another time, maybe this weekend? And same thing, you're still being honest about what you're going through. You're still expressing this desire to connect, just not right now. And so I think as long as you're able to act authentically, and by that I mean in tune with what you need, what's going on inside of you, that means that you're taking actions in a way that are really nourishing and helping yourself. Like if you're too tired to have this beautiful date and you just want pizza and watch TV, like that means you're taking care of yourself. You're giving yourself that rest. You're giving yourself that ease and entertainment and stimulation. And maybe that's what you need most at that moment because you don't really have it in you to be that like perfect partner. And so you're just doing your version of what your best is. And so that the other times when you do have that in you, then you can do more. And like you can't really do that if you're not up for it. And so that's really what I help people understand is that instead of really getting upset at yourself or your partner for failing to live up to these expectations that you might have, to really try to understand why does it feel hard? And then to just have some compassion for yourself because it probably makes complete sense why it would feel hard. Life can be pretty challenging. Relationships can be pretty challenging. And so it makes sense for them to feel hard sometimes.
So that's true. But what about in this scenario? You've come back from work, you're exhausted, and your partner is there, also exhausted, but needs to talk and is very upset about something, and you just don't have the energy to talk, but you know that it's very crucial because something is going on. What do you do in a situation like that?
So if I'm assuming in that situation that I literally do not have the energy, then I would be honest about that. I would say I really want to be able to hear you. I really want to be able to talk and help and understand what's going on here. I just don't have the energy. I don't have the bandwidth. But I would also make a commitment to say, okay, I still want to honor your need for this understanding, for this connection. And so let's schedule a time as soon as possible. Maybe it's later that day in like an hour or after I like take a shower and eat some food. Maybe it's the next day, maybe it's the weekend, but it's as soon as possible. And as long as you do that, I mean your partner could still be upset. Like I really want to talk now, but you're being honest about what you're capable of doing. And that's probably I think the best case scenario that can come out of it afterward is that you do have that conversation when you're able to do it.
That's true. And you also have that space to calm down and cool down and get your energies up because if both of you are in that space, it's going to be hitting, heads
Yeah.
or, with
Yeah,
regard.
there's an kind of an advice that I hear a lot that's super old. It's like don't go to bed angry,
Hmm.
right? With your partner. And I used to believe that for a long time. Like, yeah, you really should try to prioritize reestablishing that connection. And I've kind of changed my tune on that because like if you really, really, really need rest, it's really hard to be patient and understanding and compassionate. And so actually happened not too long ago. I think we were saying and I were like disagreeing about something. And I was like, hey, can we talk? And I think I don't know if one or both of us just fell asleep. 'Cause we were, like,
Oh
texting each
gosh.
other, and so someone fell asleep, like, one person was, like, walking around, and then we were texting, and then one person fell asleep, and then we're like, "Ah, I guess we're just gonna talk tomorrow," and then we woke up the next day, and it felt so much easier to talk, and it was like, boom, 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 "Oh, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. No problem," it just we were able to it felt like such a smaller thing after we were rested, after we just felt better, and so that's kind of the same idea, like, just take care of yourself first. And then it just makes it easier to then be there for your partner.
So you're an advocate for self-care first.
Oh, 100%, 100%. That's actually when I work with people, that's like the second thing we work on is like I'm like I ask people, "What are you doing for yourself?" And people will tell me, they're like, "Oh, well, self-care is really important. I'll do yoga or I'll rest or I'll, get my meals or I'll do whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, does it feel like it's enough?" And they're like, "Ah, that means no." You know,
Right.
that means no. And I think, like, self-care, I mean, I think it gets a bad rap because everyone's like, "Oh, it's spa days. It's like, guilty pleasure." And I don't believe anything is a guilty pleasure. It's like, it's just meeting a need. It's just something you need. And so I never want to shame anyone for what they want. I try not to, like, shame myself, even though sometimes I'm tempted to. If I feel like I really need it, then I really need it. Whatever that might be, whether it's like watching like a TV show that's like maybe I wouldn't want anyone else to watch, or like playing a phone game and I'm like, "Ah, I really should be working, but like I really want to just have a break." I really try to allow myself to do that. And I think it's not just like doing self-care, but it's also like the judgments we hold around it. Because if you're like doing all these things to take care of yourself and then you're like getting mad or disappointed in yourself for doing it, it's not really helping you the way it could. And I think people get really surprised when I talk about, because I think that self-care is a service. You also like self-care when you the care you offer yourself, the way you support your own needs. I think that actually also is to your partner's benefit, because when you are taking care of your own needs and taking ownership of your own needs, that means that you are able to show up in your relationship and talk to your partner with more patience, with more understanding, and that just makes so many of these hard conversations that we're talking about easier and possible when you are coming from that place of, I have almost everything I need, and like I feel good about myself. I feel like I'm taking care of myself. Now let's have this hard conversation because I feel like I can do it versus, oh my God, well, not this again. This is too much. I can't handle it. Like, can we just do another time? Like, you're just going to keep putting it off because you don't feel capable of having that kind of a conversation that can be tough, but ultimately is what's going to lead you to more understanding, and more connection again.
Yes, and that reminds me, this feeling of guilt is so well, okay. So I yesterday was so tired and I wanted to just stay and do nothing but just watch TV. Just, don't think, just sit. And this sound, this voice of maybe my mom or dad or whatever, you're watching too much TV. Stop watching so much TV. And it's not good for you. Get up, walk around. And then I just stopped my mind and I said, stop it. This is what I want. This is what I need. And this is what I'm going to do. And that kind of made me feel, and when you said, it's okay, and that made me feel good. Okay, I did good. I did what I needed at that moment. And being feeling guilty is such a negative emotion. You don't need to do, that guilt is again something that we've learned, I think, from our childhood, from our past. Guilt, guilt, guilt. And Burge from Essence of Being, she says, when you say you're guilty, it's like you need a punishment, because when you're guilty, punishment has to follow. So we have to stop feeling guilty so we don't punish ourselves for doing what we want to do.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I definitely want to celebrate that you were like enjoying
yes,
TV. Like, man, that's self-care. Like, you're taking care of
yes,
yourself. Wait, awesome. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about guilt, what really comes up for me is that there's usually a really strong component of like fear that if I do this thing or I don't do this thing, if I watch too much TV, I'm not being like good enough. I'm not acting the way an adult should, the way, my parents wanted me to live, to take care of myself or to live my life, or anyone else. And you're right, absolutely. These are things that we learn in childhood that we carry as adults as well. And so much of this is invisible. And so much of the work when I work with people is the first kind of sessions, couple sessions, is really about identifying that, because these are like kind of invisible. We just act on autopilot. We're watching TV and all of a sudden we hear this voice telling us you're being lazy, you know,
Mhm.
you're you're just like acting like a little kid and you're ignoring your responsibilities or whatever it is. And then you turn off the TV and then you go and do something and you're doing it and you're like, but it doesn't feel good. It feels like you're punishing yourself in some way.
Mhm.
And and so we just do that automatically. And so that's really, I think, so important to call to mind, why does something feel hard? Why does it feel hard to allow myself to watch TV? And then what is that story that I'm telling myself? And really try to understand that, not without judging or blaming what my parents said or did or what anyone else did, but really just to understand why. Because I think when something makes sense and you really deeply understand it, it's not scary anymore. It's not controlling you in that way. And then you have choice. You have a choice of deciding, do I want to listen to that voice? Is that voice serving me in some way? Because if it is, okay, maybe yeah, this was a good reminder. Maybe I do want to go outside and go for a walk and do something else. And then it's your choice and not just this voice in your head kind of making you feel this way and you're just reacting to it instinctively. And so that's just, I think, so important to reclaim the fact that you have choice in everything, even if it doesn't feel like it. And guilt and fear makes us feel like we don't have that.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. So we have a choice in everything, and all is well, and everything you do is great, and no need to feel guilty about whatever you want to do. That's life.
I mean, if we were like robots, then if we were robots, then yeah, we would never feel that, but we're human, and so we will feel
Mhm.
it. It will come up, all those things. And so, like, you could try and be like, "I'm not gonna feel guilty. I'm not gonna be like," and that God, that's like, if you ever tell yourself not to feel something, like, what's the next thing you feel? It's that thing. And so what I found to be more effective and what I teach with my clients is to allow yourself to feel it, to allow
Mm.
yourself to experience this feeling of like guilt or sadness or whatever's coming up, and like, gosh, I'm feeling this. What's going on? Why am I feeling it? It's because I heard this message before. Like, and how did that make me feel? Like, what were they trying to tell me, when someone told me that to me? And when you understand it, it strips it of that power. And then you have that choice again. And so, like, I had this experience recently where this isn't really necessarily about relationships or something, but like I went to a retreat, and this was like a coaching retreat, and I was like, I learned so much in it, and I came out of that thinking, gosh, I know exactly what I need to do to like really grow my business in a way that felt good to me, that like really was nourishing for me and like led me toward my dreams. So I had all this immense, like, really great feelings, and then I could barely sleep that night.
Mm.
And we were driving to the airport, and, like, I felt like this, like, grip on my chest, like, I could barely breathe. And and it took me, like, hours to realize that I was just doing my best not to feel afraid, to not feel this experience. And so it just kept getting stronger and stronger. And actually, it was so strong that, like, Selena, I was, like, asking her, "Can you just drive? Like, I don't feel comfortable driving with this feeling I'm having." And so she's driving, and I'm in the passenger seat, and I'm, like, I actually closed my eyes, and I was like, "Matt, okay, what's going on? Why am I feeling this?" And I just, like, allowed myself to consider what was going on, and I'm like, "Man, I feel so excited about all this new information I have, this new direction I have, but I'm also scared. I'm scared that I won't succeed and I won't have any more excuses because now I know everything. And if I fail, it's because of me. It's because I wasn't good enough. And I was terrified. And so I was like, well, and so I'm allowing myself to experience this feeling and I'm realizing, like, okay, I'm feeling this fear. And then I was like, well, why does it feel like this, almost like a hand is around my heart? And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I think it's because, like, my body and my mind are trying to protect me. They're trying to protect my heart from this possible disappointment of not succeeding, of failing. And once I realized that, I started to speak to, like, my body, which is not something I do a lot of, but in that moment I said, "Okay, like, I'm afraid. You're afraid. It makes total sense. That makes sense that you would be scared that you won't succeed at reaching your dreams and it will be your fault. That's a scary thought. You can be there and protect me without squeezing so hard. Like, you can just be there to protect me, and maybe things won't work out, but I don't need to, like, be holding on so tight that it feels like it's crushing myself." And so I said that to myself, and it's the pressure released. I could breathe again, and it still comes back sometimes, but, like, now I understand what's it coming from, and when I understand it, I can talk to myself, I can accept those feelings, and then it doesn't hold me, like, have this literal sense of holding and gripping, like, that goes away. And so that's why I think understanding yourself, understanding your partner, I think there's some of the most powerful things you can do, because it allows all those obstacles to fade away, because you're seeing why they're there in the first place. And oftentimes they're there to protect you in some way. And when you can realize, I don't need that protection, they go away.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because that makes a lot of sense. And it's true, your body does try to protect you from emotions. And if you can understand that's what's happening and release it, lovely. But I also want to share with everyone the emails that you send out. They're so amazing. I read all of them, and very vulnerable, very open. It really teaches you something or the other. And I'd encourage everyone who's listening to sign in or subscribe to those emails, which of course we will put the links to this in the information page. There was one particular one, I just want to quickly talk about it, where you've talked about the day that you did everything wrong in your house, that you forgot to do a lot of things. But I can't remember. That stuck with me. It's been that part stuck with me, but I don't remember the final what you were trying to say. Can you elaborate on
Yeah.
that
Yeah, actually,
incident?
it's funny, I think I've actually written multiple emails about that topic. I mess up a lot. Like, I mess up a lot. I think I actually sent an email just, like, a few days ago where I said the same thing, and I say that for a couple of reasons, because I just want people to understand that, like, messing up is just, like, that's just normal. Like, you have to mess up, like, you're human, like, we all make mistakes, and we can treat it like it's this massive big deal where, we're just letting ourselves down, or we're letting someone else down, our partners down, or we can just realize, like, okay, this is normal, this is what happens, and take responsibility, like, understand, like, it's not the end of the world. It feels like it's the end of the world, but it often isn't. And as long as we're just kind of able to put that in the context, then we can kind of move past it. It doesn't have to weigh us down. And because, like, the smallest things can feel like the biggest weights. And I don't remember the email you're talking about now, but my thought with all of this is that it's just so normal to make mistakes, and I think when we're able to just take responsibility for them, and to even if the result, like, wasn't what we intended, like, just like, "Hey, I did this. Yeah, I wanted to try something else, but, like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that, and I'm gonna next time I wanna try to do this thing differently." Like, the example I wrote about recently was actually, like, you got actually was a plant that you got for Selena.
That's the one I'm talking about. That's
Oh,
the
that's
email
one,
I'm
okay.
talking
Yeah,
about.
you got
Yes.
a plant for Selena, and she was like, it's like a jasmine plant, right?
Yes.
And she was so excited. Wonderful gift. Yeah, thank you for that. And she was just so excited about that. And I usually water our plants in our house, and that one was a new one. And so, like, she had told me, we, like, looked it up, like, what is the watering schedule? for that, and she looked it up and she told it to me, and so I started watering it like about once a week. But it ends up being there's more details of it. There was like once a week unless it's like in really hot weather, which it is. It's South Texas, it's outside. And so I wasn't watering it enough. And so within like a week, it went from like this blooming, beautiful, lush plant to like sticks. And I felt so bad. And I just told Sana, like, I'm so sorry. You know, really hurt this poor plant. And she was like, "Oh, like, I understand," like, and I said, like I could have been like, "Oh, you messed up. Like, you should have told me what I the full description of the watering thing." Like, I could have gotten mad and tried to defend myself, but I was like, "You know what? I screwed up. Like, so what?" But I feel bad about it. And so because I was able to be open about that, just like admit my mistake, she was like, "Oh yeah, like, like, it happens. It happens. Don't sweat it." And then she went back and was like rescuing the plant, and now it's like it's coming back. It's like we think these mistakes are like it's the end of something, but like they come back. They're never the end of anything.
That's true. That's true. And about mistakes, I don't know where I heard this, whether it was on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Somebody, a parent was asking a child, "How did you do?" And the child says, "Well, I made a mistake." And the parent applauded and said, "Awesome, you made a mistake. I'm so happy you made a mistake, and you learned from it. And let me know how. I want you to make lots of mistakes and learn
Yeah.
from it." So because we learn from our mistakes, if we don't make mistakes, nobody's perfect. There's no way. We're not come to this earth because to be perfect. We're here to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And so mistakes are crucial and important. And I remind myself about that every time I used to be very hard on myself if I made a mistake. Oh my goodness, how could you do that? I mean, you should know better. But I've learned that, oh, I made a mistake. Amazing. Now what did I learn from it? And how do I go on from here? So it takes a lot of pressure and weight off your shoulders, you know? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
when we stop being afraid of mistakes, it's like because if we're so afraid of making a mistake that we stop trying, then we stop growing too.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Yeah. So you were talking about, tell us about the program that you have going right now.
Yeah, I call it the dream marriage, dream life, a relationship, and I work with individuals one on one and help them do so many of the things that we've talked about today. Really understand like what are the stories that we're telling ourselves that are holding us back from showing up in a relationship the way we want to. And then I also teach more of like the language, like the how do you talk about your feelings and needs? How do you understand your partner and have those conversations where you can actually make changes. And then the last part is once you start to be able to work with your partner and do things together and work together, how do you start planning to make those big picture changes? And that allow you to like have that relationship of your dreams, the life of your dreams. And actually it's super exciting. I love doing it because when I work with people and I ask them, like, what do you want your relationship to look like? What do you want to be able to do differently and that you don't feel like you can do now? Most of the time, it's like they just offer like, "Well, I just want to be able to like talk a little bit more. I want us to be able to understand each other a little bit better." Like they want some incremental change. And so my favorite question I love to ask is if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about your relationship, what would that look like? And and then that's when people start to actually, even then, people still really struggle. They'll be like, "Well, I just want one little thing to be different." But I have to keep telling them, like, "No, no, no, no. This is like magic here. You can do anything." And that's when it's like, "Okay, I want different multiple houses. I want vacations. I want us to be laughing and enjoying each other and going on adventures and doing our favorite things." And I think you have to be able to dream as large and big and crazy as you can, because when you can identify that like dream life, like that becomes the blueprint of like, okay, those are the things that you're needing. Those are the things you want to build more of in your life. And and those are the things that you can start bringing into your life like literally tomorrow. Like once you know what that is, you can start taking action immediately. And I just don't think enough people realize that. And so that's a big part of my program as well, is helping people to remember how to dream again and get in touch with that, and then let that guide them in reshaping their relationship and their marriage.
How amazing is that? So when you work with clients, are they like a couple? Do they come together to speak with you, or are they you speak to one aside and then the other one
Yeah, I do
at a
it
separate time?
primarily remotely. I do work remotely and with individuals. I do work with one person at a time. And a lot of people are kind of wonder, like, I tried working with two people or then couples together, and it's possible. It's just slower. It's just slower because it's hard especially in the beginning, to really be able to, like, open up about all the stuff that's, like, going inside of you when your partner's right there. Because then you just say one thing, and then they're like, "Oh, that's not what I meant. That's not whatever." And, then it's just like there's more of a mediation as opposed to learning. And I so the program that I work with when I work with people individually is really about, first, let's break down everything. Now let's learn how to have those conversations. And so I usually will be that stand-in, and we practice before they go, and then use that with their partner. And so they already have some more comfort and familiarity with how to make these changes.
You were talking about with me about a guide. Can you tell me what this guide is all about?
Yeah, yeah. I do offer a free guide. I call it the Instant Partner Connection Guide, and it's something that I like to offer for free as a gift when people sign up for my mailing list. And it's really like when I was describing earlier how easy it is to lose connection with your partner. If you've been in a situation where you love your partner, you've had that connection, you've had that understanding, you have that closeness, and then over time you have the kids, you have the busier job, you have, like, all your family responsibilities and everything else that keeps building, building, building. And so you're not really talking to each other the way you used to. You're not really feeling as close as you used to. And then when you try to have those conversations, like we were talking about, I'm tired. I'm busy. I got an early morning. There just doesn't feel like it's possible. This is the guide that can help you restart that conversation, where it's not just like surface level. Hey, how was your day, honey? Oh, it's fine. It's like, this is how you can have a conversation where you're like, hey, what's on your mind? Like, is there something that's coming up lately that you're really excited about? Oh, what is that? Can you tell me more? And is that and then it's just really like a step-by-step guide about, like, how to have a really deep, meaningful, rich conversation, so that at the end of it, like, you feel closer. You kinda have that, like, aha moment. The way I like to describe it is, like, if you've ever had a conversation with, someone, and you're just kinda, like, talking about something that's, like, really been on your mind, and then they respond, and they seem to perfectly get it, and you're like, "Yes! Yes, you get it." Like, have you ever had that kinda conversation?
Yes.
Yeah, and so this guide is basically how to offer that to your partner. Because when you offer that to your partner, then, like, they go from being, "Oh, I don't know what to talk about, like, I don't know what to say." Now they're like, "Oh, yeah, you get me. Like, I wanna have more of these conversations. I wanna share more." And so it really reopens that connection again, and really brings that closeness, alive, I think, for couples. And so that's that guide I like to offer people for free.
That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful gift. It's been amazing speaking with you today, Matt. But I would love for people to know how to get in contact with you if they wanted to work with you. And I mean, I highly recommend it because I mean, I've seen my daughter and she's so happy. And she says, we have a wonderful life together. We understand each other. We talk to each other. And I would love more and more people to, have this. And so, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can either, go on social media. I'm on, like, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram at Growing More Joy. And I also have a website, growmorejoy.com. That's where you can get a lot of my background information. You can also email me directly, Matt, Matt, at growmorejoy.com. And that's just if you really want to just reach me directly. Any of those ways you can get in touch.
Awesome. Of course, we will have all these links in our information section. So please go there and get in touch with Matt and have a happy life. Thank
Thank
you
you so
again,
much.
Matt, for being here. Namaste.
Thank you.
Quest for Peace, a podcast about navigating outer chaos with inner harmony. Whether you're seeking solace in the midst of life's challenges or simply curious about the profound connection between inner and outer peace, the Quest for Peace podcast is your guide on this transformative expedition.